FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is 4/17/20. Well, just when you thought it was safe to de-quarantine, they want to keep you in your home for a couple more months. We're not going to let them do it though, are we? And, well, what do you think about this virus? What do you think about the reaction to the virus, which may be the cure? The purported cure, we don't really know if it cures anything or not, is worse than the disease. I'd like to know your opinion. I'd like to hear from you. Email us kl@kerrylutz.com, kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, our good friend, Dr. John Huber, is with us now. And Dr. Huber, while you're not an MD, you certainly have great exposure to hospitals, to the medical system, and other people, other players involved here. What's your opinion of the virus pandemic that we've purportedly been undergoing here?
Well, I want to see numbers. I mean, as a forensic psychologist, that's what I want to work with. I want to see the raw data, and I want to see those numbers crunched. We don't have good data. What we've got are anecdotal situations because we're not doing random samples and we're not going through and seeing what the infection rate really is in our population. We're limiting the people we've allowed to be tested. We tell people, oh, you have to have a reason to be tested. Then they turn around and tell everybody that, oh, you're asymptomatic carrier. You know, you're out there, so everybody has to wear a mask. And I think they're just escalating fear. I think it's going to be an interesting story to watch unfold over the next couple of years. I believe it's going to be researched more than polio was ever researched. And every laboratory, every biology lab in the world is going to be trying to explain what the fear is. Was it justified? Was it not justified? And in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to come out with the real story. And it'll be too late. And it doesn't make sense. You know, when you quarantine somebody, you quarantine them because they are infected or because they have had exposure, and you can document that. This shelter in place, the reason why I don't want to use quarantine is because they don't want you to think that they're doing something inappropriate. I think it is inappropriate. And they're causing more psychological stress and harm to our culture, to our society, and to our economy than the virus, I think, would have done in and of itself. I still think we have a vibrant economy, and once the machine gets turned back on, I'm still a firm believer before the end of this year, we'll be back up to 30,000, actually may break 30,000 this year.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm an optimist that way. But
well, according to Master Trader Nick Santiago, we've put in the low. It's going to be a choppy year. He said that years that end in a zero are always panic years. And by next year, it probably will be making new highs, as will gold and silver, because all these currency units being printed up out of thin air isn't going to help anything in the long run. But for now,
absolutely,
it's happening, and nothing we can do about it. So,
I think the psychology, I think the psychology, when people get told they can go out, they're going to go out. They're going to start going to movies. They're going to go to clubs. They're going to go to restaurants. They're going to spend money. And even though they've been spending money and not making any, they're going to do something for their sanity. And I think that's what's going to happen. People are going to go out and shop brick and mortar because they're going to want to be out of their house.
Yes.
And I think we're going to see a big pop when everything gets lifted. And it may just be regional or however they decide to do this easing back in, which I think is kind of a joke. The minute they start telling people they can go back to work, even if it's not your sector, people are going to start hitting the roads and they're going to be out there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's human nature. You don't want to be locked up.
Yeah, and having been locked up now for nearly a month, so you've got a lot of colleagues, doctors, nurses, and health professionals. What are they telling you about COVID-19?
Well, of course, being medical practitioners, we're always cautious, and we want to follow the edicts and the mandates, but underneath it all, I think we're all sitting there looking that it's no more lethal once the story gets told, I think, than what the flu is. And part of that, we have so many mixed numbers out there. Nobody can sit there and say, oh, no, it is 1% or it's 8%. I remember Italy touting 8% death rate. And the problem is they're only testing the people who come into their hospitals sick with COVID.
Right.
So they don't know. They're not sampling the whole population. That goes to the random samples we need to do. I think there's a lot of people out there who had it earlier, maybe even as early as November, and they lived, and we didn't see any spike in our deaths, and we labeled it pneumonia or, emphysema or whatever was going on. Maybe they're end-stage cancer, and they died when they got the virus, and they got labeled as, cancer caused the death, not the virus. And now all of a sudden, because we've got this fear-mongering going on, it's politically advantageous for both parties and everybody involved in politics. So they're all doing it. And it's causing extreme paranoia in my patients. And when I go out, because I'm considered essential in certain areas, and I go out and do my rounds or whatever, and I stop into some of these essential places, and people are almost violently paranoid. And if you get more than, if you get 5.5 feet, man, people are yelling. And
yeah, I know.
We're on edge. We're on edge.
Ridiculous. Well, my guess is with the cases are dropping off rapidly now. Of course, they don't want to tell you that. But if you look at these maps, you can see the rate of increase. That to me is the main thing. And that's when it shows it's a pandemic or an epidemic. And that rate, the rate of increase is way, way down, meaning that it's doubling in weeks or months now rather than daily. And that means that this thing is over. And
I agree. And, if you look at the double, if it really was doubling every day, like they said, this thing started, we know in China now, at least in November, we would have already saturated the whole world population. Remember that game you used to play? Your parents would say, hey, would you rather have $100 now or a penny doubled every day for the next 30 days?
Yeah.
And you know how that money just geometrically increases. Mm-hmm. And, kids go, oh, I want the $100. I don't want a penny. But they don't see the math until you learn the math. If we were really doing double infection rates every day, everybody in the world would be already infected with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's out in the wild, which means that a certain percentage of the population has built-in immunity to it. We saw this on the ship, the Diamond Princess, 3,700 people on the ship, 7 people died, 700 people got the virus there, and they were older people, probably more compromised immune systems, all those factors involved. And yet only 20% of the people on the ship, that's crew and passengers, only 20% got it. And they were constantly together for weeks because they wouldn't let them dock.
Right. Well, and those are the ones who actually showed the symptoms. You're not talking about the ones who were exposed and their immune system beat it and now they have antibodies.
Yeah.
So, that 700 out of 3,700 that's even still a skewed number. We need to do random sampling and look at the antibodies and start look like we do with the flu vaccine. We talk about, oh, it's such a great thing this year. It's 40% successful. 40% is not a great thing. I mean, that's not failing in any class I've ever, or that is failing in every class I've ever taught.
Yeah.
So, and then some years we have bad years when it's only 5% effective. And people will still, oh, you have to get vaccinated with it. Why do we want another vaccine that we don't know how successful it's going to be? Let's let our society build up an immunity to it like we do the rhinovirus and the human coronavirus, which now I guess this is human coronavirus. It's just it came from a different origin. So.
Yeah, no, agreed. So how do you fight this? You got peer pressure against you. You've got the law against you. They want to go and arrest you. What do you do?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Financial Survival Network is brought to you today by Orin Resources, a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major. It's hot on the trail of the next globally significant discovery, creating enormous potential upside for you, the shareholder. Orin is one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management has a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets. No wonder Orin's been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and the NYSE under AUG. To learn more, go to orinresources.com. That's AURYN resources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Well, I think what we have to do is realize we can't change other people's behavior. And once we do that and we decide to, okay, it's not worth going after them and trying to change their opinion, their mind, whatever, we need to focus on your behavior. That's what we got to do. We need to, I think there's some positive things that can come out of this shelter at home, sequestration, whatever you want to call it. Because now we can actually spend time with the people who supposedly are the important people to us. Now, I also have attorneys that are friends of mine in New York, here in Texas, all over said that they're getting calls for divorce paperwork to start being filed like they've never seen before. But maybe this is something that should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah,
but you hid in your phone, so you didn't ever have to deal with it. But put your phones down, spend time with your family. Spend time with your family. Shelter in place does not mean you don't go outside. It doesn't mean you lock the doors and board the windows. I'm sitting outside right now. It's 50 degrees. I got my shoes off, my feet in the dirt, and my rescue puppy has been coming out and checking on me all day. I've been doing radio interviews, sitting outside, and, my family comes out, hangs out with me, and what I want you to do is get some of that sunlight. That sunlight is very important for vitamin D production with your skin. Vitamin D is essential for your immune system to fight any virus. So you need vitamin D. Don't lather up sunscreen. If you're afraid of getting sunburned, put it on when you get outside. It takes 20 to 30 minutes for it to actually take effect and be fully absorbed. That way you get a good half hour of unfiltered sunlight, and that causes your vitamin D production to go through the roof, which in turn increases all your neurotransmitters, serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, oxytocin, all those things that help our brain run normally. When we lock ourselves inside, we start having depleted neurotransmitters. Those in particular we named, and people start getting depressed, and then they're being told to isolate, and that magnifies the depression. And when we do flip the switch on, those people are going to be stuck at home because they can't muster up enough chutzpah or whatever you want to call it to get up and walk out the door as much as they want to. So go hiking, go walking, get outside, spend time with your family and those people that are important to you that you're living with. That's the one caveat to all of this. You have to be 6 feet apart unless you live with those people. This is a good time. Spend some time with them. Turn your phones off. And when you do use your phone, don't text. Don't text right now. People have time. They're not working. Call them. Talk to them.
Yes.
Emojis don't give you that human connection, but you hear the inflection in people's voices. You hear the emotion. You hear the love, the caring, the concern. Those sounds actually stimulate production of all those neurotransmitters, whereas texting, we know it bumps one up, and that's dopamine. Yes. Social media bumps up dopamine. You need all your neurotransmitters increased to have a balanced brain chemistry. So talk to people. It's not as good as actually shaking their hands and hugging them and giving them the fist bump, whatever you're going to do. But talking is the next best thing because we hear all that and it triggers all those connections in your brain to start producing those neurotransmitters. Otherwise, you're basically taking a drip at a time, heroin, every time you respond to those social media response in the text. You get a little bitty drip of dopamine. Your frontal lobe gets saturated with dopamine. When you put your phone down, you crave that drip, so you have to pick it back up. And the social media programmers are amazing human behavioralists. They set that thing up. For example, the algorithms in Instagram, I've read that you post something on there and 20 of your friends like it almost immediately. Well, what they do is they let you see 3 or 4 people like it. And then about 10 minutes later, they let 3 or 4 more people's like go through. So you don't see that on yours. and it gets spread out over time, and it keeps that drip coming, and it keeps you addicted to that app.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Turn your data stream off.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good idea. And like you say, spending more time with your family and the people who really matter, definitely. And stop being scared about it. Hey, I've always, since I moved to Florida, had a convertible, and so I get my vitamin D. Plus, I take a vitamin D supplement, which I think probably is a good thing also. And really, it just seems like it's a lot of panic with very little. Look, they sent these ships to LA, and they sent one to New York City, to Manhattan, and they've hardly been used. They set up a field hospital in the Javits Center, the Coliseum, the Convention Center in Manhattan, and it's hardly been used. All of these provisional hospitals they set up all over the place have been totally underutilized. So yes, the ERs, the emergency rooms in hospitals in Manhattan definitely were under pressure, but not now.
Yeah.
It's more or less over, this thing, and they just won't admit it. It must be serving some purpose, some narrative that they need to be projecting at this point.
Well, the government's here to solve all our problems.
Yeah, right. Okay, I forgot about that.
When people forget that we are the government, it is for the people, by the people, of the people, and we need to step up and let our voices be heard. And I do like what the Surgeon General came out and said, look, we have enough hard data now. We need to start making decisions off that hard data, not these speculative algorithms and projective programs that they have that are saying we need to be sequestered or shelter in place till August and things like that. I totally agree with the Surgeon General. Now we just need to start doing it. And I already know that our local politicians don't agree with that. They like Bill Gates' model, and they want to use it, and they're extending our shelter in place. They just got told my son's not going to have prom his senior year, not going to have graduation his senior year because they've extended the date too far. And you're affecting people, and these politicians need to realize that we're not going to forget that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because it's just irrational what's happened, and the number of deaths that will occur from shutting down the global economy are going to far eclipse any possible deaths that came from the coronavirus. There's no question about that in my mind. And
suicide hotline numbers, there's actually wait times on several of them right now, and
they put you on hold.
Scary because they just let it ring. But the problem is these people are sequestered at home and they can't go. A lot of these places are actually call centers, not there are some local ones, small towns. They usually have them so that you can do it from your home. But a lot of the major cities and the national hotline, those are centers. Those aren't, people volunteering in their home and taking these phone calls. So we have to remember that. And there's also panic, for panic disorders, panic hotlines. And I've read some places there's a 20 to 30 minute wait. If you're having an acute panic attack, that's the last thing you need to have right now, the 20 or 30 minute wait on it. You think you're having a heart attack, but you have a panic disorder. How do you tell all that? How do you calm yourself down? You're used to that safety net, and now it's not there.
Wow.
It's pretty disturbing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's going to be over with soon. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail. You're starting to see blowback in places like Michigan, in Pennsylvania. I think in your state, in Texas, the governor is going to start, supposedly he's coming out with an executive order this week to restart the place. In most of Texas, geographically, there was no coronavirus. Same thing in other states. So why to shut it down? I could see New York. It almost makes sense. Florida made no sense. California made zero sense. California had really never bore the brunt of it. Washington, we know this is over, Doctor. One other reason why is because Washington State had the worst inflammation of it, infection rate in the country. They were the first state to really get hit hard. And the number of cases has been diminishing over time. They're now like 13th or 14th worst. My question is this. If you have a state and it's had less than 100 coronavirus deaths, however that's defined. Let's assume they're just defining it the way it should be. Like, why should Pennsylvania be shut down here? Or why should all these states be shut down when really you're just seeing, I was looking at the old map, but looking at these states like, when I'm looking, the Northern Mariana Islands had 2 deaths.
Oh my goodness.
What's with, why close down the Northern Mariana Islands? And Guam had a death. But looking at Wyoming had 1 death. Alaska had 7. North Dakota didn't shut down. I don't think Montana did. Hawaii had 9. West Virginia had 10. Guam had 6. All right, maybe they don't have that many people. Maine had 20 deaths so far. And Puerto Rico, Vermont, 29. If any state has less than 100 deaths, why have any restrictions whatsoever?
Right, and I would like to see the data. I don't want to see, they died of COVID-19. I want to see what other medical problems were going on with that. Because my experience is that the people who are dying don't necessarily die directly from the COVID. They have other medical problems, and the COVID gives them, another domino in that line, and they all just fall.
Right.
And it's not the actual cause. I mean, I had a patient who was in a bar fight in the early 80s, and he had a bullet lodged in his back. And when he finally died about 3 years ago, the reason for the death was a gunshot wound. That was what came out in the pathology report, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after he died, because of all the complications associated with that. Not the fact that he got pneumonia and died. It was a gunshot wound that was given the diagnosis.
Oh, yeah. You see that. And we know that they're fudging the numbers because there's higher reimbursement rate. If the death certificate says COVID-19, 60% of people die in hospitals, 40% don't. The 40% that don't, the doctor writes a death certificate, a cause of death, and it's not medically certain. It's his or her best guess. And so the death certificate becomes like a term of art rather than a hardcore fact. And that's something that I never knew until this, that I always thought, well, if Quincy said the guy died of this, then he died of it. But most people don't have autopsies, and most people, only a little more than half die in the hospital. The rest, it's a guess. But if you've been treated for cancer for 6 years and you finally died from it, you succumbed, then that's the cause of death. But if you had COVID-19 and you died, then it's to the hospital's economic benefit to say that you died of COVID-19. They have a conflict of interest to inflate the death toll and to give us bad data. And that's the worst of all possible worlds. Hey, people want to find out more about you, read your work, Doctor. Where's the best place to go?
Well, you go to my website, and there you can hook up to all my social media. The website, easiest way to get there is drpsycho.org, drpsycho.org, or you can go to the direct way, which is mainstreammentalhealth.org.
All right. Excellent. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Any questions for the good doctor or myself? Just email me, kl@kerrylutz.com, kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feed's @kerrylutz. Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. And, of course, visit our website, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for our newsletter and follow all of our social media as well. Doctor, really appreciate you coming on. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about this before long. You be well. Stay healthy.
Thank you, sir. You're amazing. I love your show. Keep going.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.